Aloha everyone, this is TJ Storm. I am Godzilla, King of the Monsters. I played Colossus on Deadpool. I played Darth Vader, Baby Groot, Teenage Groot, Iron Man. I played all kinds of fun characters, and I am happy to tell you about the Kasanova podcast, the #1 podcast in Hawaii. I hope that you can join us here at the Kasanova podcast. Let's see you soon. Peace out.
Aloha and welcome everyone to another episode of Hawaii's #1 podcast, the Kasanova podcast. I'm your host, Mekel Kasanova, and I am joined today by the one, the only, the iconic TJ Storm. TJ, how you doing, man?
I'm good, man. Thanks for having me, Mekel. This is dope, man. This is really, really cool.
And it is an honor having you on the show. And, you know, for the people who don't know, and for the people who are out here who probably don't even know either, you actually grew up here in Honolulu, Hawaii. That's crazy.
Absolutely. I grew up on the streets of Waikiki, man. I went to elementary to Jefferson School. Then I went to a school called Our Redeemer up near University of Hawaii. And then our basketball team was horrible. So I decided I want to play basketball on a better team. So I went down to McKinley and I played on that basketball team. That was a totally different experience. I got my ass kicked, but I played better games and it was more fun. And I learned different lessons. It was really cool.
Cool, man. Cool. Yeah, my youngest daughter is actually going to be starting at Jefferson next month, so it's super exciting.
Great school.
But man, McKinley, talk about it, man. How was going there to McKinley?
Dude, it was really interesting because Our Redeemer is a small, like a sheltered religious school. Lutheran is a Lutheran school.
Yeah,
and very small, and it was fun. It was fine. It was absolutely fine. And then McKinley is giant. It is an enormous compound directly behind the Neil Blaisdell. Is it still there? Yep.
Mm-hmm.
And thousands of students, and it was eye-opening. But it was more cultures, more experiences. I made great friendships. I love to dance. I grew up breakdancing and stuff, and I grew up in that era. So it became a serious thing of, oh, you got moves? Let's see it. And we were in the bathroom breakdancing, spinning on our shoulders, our heads. And then the teachers were, what are you doing? We'd run all over the place. It was amazing. It was an amazing experience.
Oh man, that's awesome. It's crazy because like I don't really get to talk to a lot of celebrities that have a lot of experience with Hawaii or grew up out here. So it's awesome being able to talk about that because like McKinley is an experience unto itself, man. Even to this day, it still is.
It still is. That's good to hear. It was really eye opening. I mean, there's so many cultures there, and I love that because some of my friends who were Vietnamese, Chinese, Laotian, and I got to go to their houses and hang out and learn all of these different things. Japanese, Chinese, try different foods, try different cultures, go to different ceremonies, festivals, and all of this stuff just hits you all at once. And I listen to different kinds of music that I might have never listened before. And I experienced Samoans and Tongans, and all of that culture was absolutely amazing to get to be on teams with, be in class with, and share stories with. All of that was absolutely amazing, and I think I'm a better person for that. So I really appreciate all of that.
Yeah, so one thing about Hawaii, like a lot of people may not understand, it's so culturally diverse here. Like it is literally the melting pot of the world. You're gonna meet people from everywhere out here. So.
Absolutely, dude. When I was a kid, one of the first things that anybody would ask you is, where are you from? And I'm like, oh, I'm from here. And they're like, oh, I'm from Guam. And it was actually interesting. Now, I don't know if, at least on the mainland, I live in Los Angeles now. Here, people get slightly defensive. I'm like, where are you from? And it might be a Chinese person. They're like, I'm from Wisconsin. And I'm like, okay, just relax. That's fine. I was just curious. It's just a thing I ask. But it's unfortunate because it's a story. It's part of your story, and it's
Yeah.
actually interesting to us who grew up in Hawaii because that's part of you, and it tells us more about what to expect, and we can learn from that. I think we've gotten to a place where sorry, my camera's freaking out. We've gotten to a place where we get so defensive that we lose track of our own history and our own story by shielding it away and keeping it so
Yeah.
close. But I'm happy to share it. I think it's beautiful to hear those stories and to share them.
No, it definitely is. I know every time, because my dad is actually from Memphis, Tennessee, so anytime like I've gone there, and a little bit of times like I grew up there, um, very small amount of time, but like I would say same thing to people that I'd be like, hey, where are you from? And they're like, what do you mean where I'm from? I'm like, that's such a Hawaii thing. Like, like I'm like, hey, I'm not trying to scrap with you or start fights or anything or get lickings or anything like that. I just want to know, like, where are you from? Like, what part? Like, oh, I'm from here, South Memphis or such and such. And I'm just like, okay, cool. I just asked a question. Calm down.
That
Put some ice
that
cubes on it. Chill out.
exactly that. That's what I'm talking about. And I love sharing those stories. Once they finally understand that you're with them in the story and you're genuinely curious, they relax. But the defensive response is unfortunate. But whereas we didn't have that in Hawaii, everybody's like, "Hey, where you from?" And I was like, "Oh, I was born in Indiana." And they're like, "What's that?" And we would have a discussion. All of a sudden, we'd learn. And I mean, the cool thing about growing up in Waikiki is, especially in the summertime, you're getting all these school kids that you were the same age as, and you're
Hmm.
like, "Where are you from?" I'm like, "Kentucky or New York." I'm from New York. And I'm like, "Where you guys got a good burger, some pizza?" I'm like, uh, and they're like, "This ain't pizza," and you would learn all of their stuff, and it's really,
Yep.
really cool. We got into stupid fights about putting pineapple on pizza.
Oh, pizza.
Yeah, and they were offended. They were legit offended, and they're like, "What is this?" I'm like, "This is cool, man." And I learned an entire culture. It was really cool. I love that. I'm really happy I got to grow up with that in my life.
Definitely, man. Definitely. Um, when's the next time you think you're gonna be out here?
I want to come out this year. Maybe before the end of the year. I'm really looking forward to it. I miss it. I went back for the first time 2 years ago for the first time in at least 2 decades. At least
Hmm.
it is both exactly the same and vastly different in a weird way.
Yeah.
Mostly, did you ever know there was a what was that place called in Waikiki? There was a place where there was trees and there was shops in the trees, and you could go in between all of those places. International Marketplace.
Yeah, yeah. Dude,
Yeah,
it's gone.
it's not the same anymore. Now
No.
it is highly polished, expensive shops, Coach and Tesla and all these things. And I'm like, oh, this is new. The trees, there's a couple of trees left, but man, when I was a kid, it was like a magical forest. You go in
Yeah.
and you're chasing your friends around. There was an ice cream place called Farrell's in it, and
Hmm.
we would just run in circles and explore and bump into tourists. It was a blast. But yeah, I'm looking forward to coming back and exploring more. I love the energy there. The people are amazing. The energy is healing, and the weather is perfect.
Yes, yes, yes. Yeah, I mean it's been interesting seeing the constant changes out here, from what Hawaii used to be, especially here in Waikiki, to what it is now. I mean, there are condos going up left and right. And I know there's a lot of pushback on that. A lot of people are like, hey, we need to have more affordable housing for the locals and everything like that. At the same time, a lot of the buildings that have been up, like, I don't think a lot of people realize how old some of these buildings were. They were not up to code. I mean, even the condo that I'm in now, like, it literally is from, I want to say, the 1940s or 50s. Like, these are some old buildings that they're tearing down. But uh, it's interesting seeing how it's changed. It's way more modern, but at the same time, you go to a place like Ala Moana Mall now, and it's like it's not for locals; it's for
No,
tourists.
no,
There's
it is not.
nothing.
Yeah, and it's really. Is the cost of living difficult there? Is it a challenge?
Yeah, Yeah.
Okay, so I remember when I lived in a cool building on the Alawai, and it was probably made
Mhm.
in the 50s or 60s, but it was a beautiful building. And then two, one building, and then one space. In that space, to the right of my building, was this small string of houses in between massive buildings, and it was
Mhm.
Samoan and Tongan families. And they would come out. They wouldn't have a shirt on. They'd have, what is the rap called?
Lava. Yeah.
Yeah, the lava. They'd come out in the morning and they'd be smacking the kids in the head like, go to school, you're gonna be late. And I was like, this is right next to the buildings. And I grew up with seeing that, and I was like, that's cool. Hi. And they'd be like, hey, go to school. And so that was awesome. But I came back, and that was automatically in my head. All of that's gone. There's no
Yeah.
place to squeeze in anymore. You're lucky to get into a good rent, I think, because man, it is, the
Yeah.
cost of living is not an easy thing to get into there. But it's still a beautiful place and definitely worth the struggle. But man, it's not easy.
Yes. Yes. Like I tell people, I'm like, if you're gonna live out here, like you definitely need to be making more than six figures. And they're like, what do you mean? Like 100,000 is not enough? No, 100,000 is on the very low end here. Like it's crazy expensive.
Yeah, you don't just
Um,
pop in unless you're visiting. Unless
no.
you're visiting.
Yeah, it's crazy because like it used to be. Now I'm kind of revealing my age here. But it used to be like you wanted to rent like a one bedroom apartment. It's like in the upper to mid one, like $1,000 or so. Now it's like that is closer to two, if not over two. And it's like you're gonna get like a little hole in the wall. Like you're not gonna get a whole lot of space. So if
That
you're
is the
from
price.
somewhere, yeah, like if you're from somewhere that has like big space for like low rent, yeah, you're not gonna get that out here.
Yeah, yeah. It's like those magical places you watch in movies when you're in New York and they got a whole space, and you're like, that's not New York. Nobody in New York could afford that place that we're looking at in the film. Nobody could afford that. The place where the people and friends lived, that is a fairy tale, and it's the same thing in Hawaii. You're not going
Yep.
to get all that space unless your last name is Musk or something like that. So yeah, it's not easy. It is not easy, but it is worth it. It is a beautiful place.
Yeah. So, pivoting to a new topic, man. Let's talk more about you. Let's talk about your background with martial arts and what got you into it. Because I'm into Jeet Kune Do. I've done Kyokushin Ryu karate, but like, man, your resume of martial arts is just absolutely fantastic. Like, what got you into it?
Uh, I, I wish I could take credit for it. To be honest, my mom, when I was really young, I started by playing piano, and I was really,
Hmm.
really good piano. I was almost a prodigy. And so my parents were like, you're really good at piano, but you got to practice, which means we have to get you a piano. And that is not a small investment. Are you
Yeah.
sure you want to do piano? And I was like, yeah, I was 6. I knew what I wanted. So they got me a piano, and I'm sitting there and occasionally getting smacked by the teacher. I was supposed to have my wrists up, and I was supposed to be playing
Oh
like
yeah.
I hated that because it was up here for me. I was a little kid, and and then after that, I had to practice an hour every night. And
Hmm.
the theory of relativity states that an hour is actually 4 hours in child years. So I was like, I want to be outside. Pew! And I would take off because I was hyperactive. And my parents were like, "You're back in there." I'm like, "No!" And I was running around the woods because this was Indiana. This is before I came to Hawaii. And
Hmm.
and then when I was 7, we moved to Hawaii. I quit the piano. I made my parents so angry. So next thing, they're like, "You're driving your teachers nuts. You have too much energy. You're goofing around in class. You're running around the class. You're telling jokes. You're bouncing off the walls. We need to give you discipline, and we need to drain off some of your energy. How about karate?" I grew up watching Bruce Lee and Jackie
Hmm.
Chan. And man, that was my Saturday afternoon. Every Saturday was kung fu theater, black belt theater, and I loved it. My dad and I watched it, and they're like, "How would you want to do karate?" I'm like, "Yeah." And they're like, "This is not cheap. Are you sure you want to do karate?" I'm like, "Yeah." I said the same thing about the piano, and my mom's like, "You said that about the piano," and I'm like, "Yeah, yeah, that was different. This is, yeah." So I went to karate, and I'm doing karate, and it was cool until I had to block somebody, and that shit hurt. And I'm like, I don't want to do this anymore. And my mom's like, nope, you ran out on the piano. This is consequences. Took me by the ear, walked me back into karate. I'm like, I don't want to be here. And the sensei was like, yeah, again. I'm like, I didn't want to be doing it, but I had to do it. And then to make sure that I didn't sneak out, my mom started taking classes. So I made it to orange belt or blue purple belt or something like that. And my mom was down there in the white belts going, I'm like, oh. So I couldn't sneak out. I couldn't get out of the class. And now, the magic of karate is you're forced to practice. Otherwise, they hit you. It is just that simple. If you don't practice, they hit you. And when I say they, it's everybody in the class. So they throw a punch at your head and you just do the thing. You heal, you get stronger. All of this gets stronger over time. You get better because of practice. Who knew? And I started getting okay at it. And I started to learn. And I was like, oh, it's not so bad after you get over the first hump. And I just did it every day. And they were Japanese. And they barely, my primary sensei didn't really speak very much English. This is what a compliment sounds like. Mm. This is what a correction sounds like. Mm. And I was like, oh, and you can hear the difference. If you know, you know. So, and they would smack your leg into shape and straighten your back and all this stuff. So, flash forward a couple of years, and I'm okay at it. And I never looked back. It was just what you did after school 3 times a week, and then sometimes on Saturdays. And the primary karate was in Manoa, and then the main school was all the way in Kailua. So sometimes my parents would take me to Kailua, and I'd go to that school as well, where all of the black belts were, and that was very intimidating. But it was awesome to grow up in that Japanese culture and that harsh training environment, which gave me a lot of grit and a lot of discipline and a lot of strength and a lot of character. And I learned quite a bit from doing that. And it also taught me I learned to learn, and that tempered me and it chilled me out. And it helped me be who I am today. It gave me a career. So thanks, Mom and Dad, for that, because that is how I got to where I am. And so because I learned how to learn, I started, when I came to LA, I was like, well, I've done karate. I don't feel like I want to start immediately a new karate. And I was going down the street one day and I saw some people doing kung fu in the park. And I'm like, that's good. That's just like in the movie. So I pulled over and I sat there in the grass watching them. And I did this for weeks. And finally the Sifu looked over. He saw me. I was always on my motorcycle. I had my helmet next to me and I just watched. I couldn't afford the classes because I was a starving actor in Hawaii, in Los Angeles. So the Sifu was like, hey, why don't you just join the class? And I'm like, I can't afford it. I just wanted to watch because I think it's awesome. He's like, yeah, come on. And I'm like, but he goes, yeah, you can't afford it. So just come on and practice. Just practice. He let me train Northern Shaolin Kung Fu. And as a result, I got to practice for a decade. I trained that for a decade, over a decade. And so I got to learn Kung Fu. And then as a result, eventually I got to try Taekwondo, Capoeira, Jiu-Jitsu, Jeet Kune Do, Kali, Eskrima, Dosi Paris. I got to study probably about 14 styles, and I got to study them in depth. There was a time in my life that I literally trained about 8 hours a day, and then maybe 6 hours on Saturdays, and I didn't generally train on Sundays, although I taught on Sundays. So, yeah, it was a great time in my life to absorb and to learn, and it gave me part of the career that I have today is from all of those martial arts. And I had the honor of being inducted into the Martial Arts Hall of Fame a few times, and I've gotten to meet some of the people I watch on television. One of my masters was a master named Billy Blanks. I grew up watching him. I think it was called King of the Kickboxers. He was in that, and I remember watching him, and I'm like, this guy's not even human. How's he kicking like that? How's he jumping like that? He was an amazing athlete. And then I got to train with him, and I trained with him for over a decade. He he made my kicks so much more powerful. But I got something from all of my masters, and I'm very grateful. And I'm also grateful for the chance to pass some of that on.
So you were saying, starting off in LA and the struggle of that, like how hard was it, trying to get into acting and just the scene in LA when you started?
Honestly, I came out as a dancer. I was a dancer because I got good at dancing, and I was surrounded by great dancers, and we had a group, and we got into battles. It was like a movie or a television show. Every week we were in a different
Oh, you
battle.
used to battle?
Every
Oh
single
man.
week. And I mean, if we were crossing the street and the bad guys, the other group, was crossing the street, we would stop, walk in a circle around each other, put down a giant boombox, and we would stop traffic to have a battle right there. And it was a magical time for us, and we probably were hated by the people in traffic because we were in the middle of the street breakdancing. Come on, I dare you to do it. And it was amazing. It was absolutely amazing time to grow up. But we finally got to do this big dance battle. And one of the prizes was a scholarship to dance school. And we won that event. Our group's name was Fresh Force, and we won that event. And I got to go to Punahou for dance school. And this
Oh
is
wow.
school that I believe Barack Obama went to as a child as well.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so, yeah, I went to that school, and uh, my dance instructor was incredible, absolutely incredible. But she made me do ballet, and I was not having it. I was so annoyed because I was a break dancer, and I was like, "Yo, let's go! I want to do all this cool stuff," and they'll smack you and make you stand up straight and make your head line and all of this stuff. And I'm like, man. And then I slowly realized I was the only guy in class.
Yeah.
That was cool. That was cool.
I can relate because I did ballet, put in there, and I was like, I hated it, dude. Everything you're telling me, I'm like, yes, I lived through that, but I was also the only guy too. So I was like, oh,
Unfortunately, they looked down on me because I couldn't do ballet, and they're like, plebe. And I was like, oh, man. So I had to get better to be okay and acceptable in this classroom setting. And between those two motivations, having an amazing and strict instructor, which coming from karate, that didn't bother me. I was okay with getting the corrections, and I had to do the right thing. And I had the social pressure of not looking like a dork in front of all of these cool women who I would never be noticed by in a million years, except if I could dance. So I became a better dancer as a result. And what I didn't expect was the ballet made my martial arts so much stronger, because all of a sudden I could understand my body position, and I control my body better, and I could be more dramatic in the moments that I needed for my kata, because kata is a formalized dance of martial art moves. And all of a sudden, instead of just doing the stuff, I was like, huh. And I had these great lines because ballet taught me to be aware of those things, which I wasn't aware of before. It gave me a great kinesthetic sense. So as a result, I became a better dancer and a better martial artist and a better person. It gave me a great deal of culture that I would have not have looked for or knew that existed. So jazz, ballet, modern, I got to do all of that. And I'm very, very thankful for that. So when I got out to LA, I danced in a lot of music videos, and I lived to dance when I was in Hawaii. When I finally got to LA, I started to realize no matter how hard, and I love hearing the crowd cheer for the dancers. In LA, the dancers were part of, they were back up to the singers. They weren't just themselves dancers, they were back up to singers. So they would forget about you the second the show was over. Poof, they never thought about you again. Maybe they saw you on music videos occasionally, but that was the end of that. And you put so much of your heart and soul into dancing that you would like it to affect more people. At least I did. I wanted to affect more people. I would hope that it would, or at least leave them with a memory. When I think back, some of my idols were Gregory Hines and Mekel and Shields and Yarnell. These people, I grew up and I wanted to be dancers like they were, as good as they were. And they were inspiring, but I realized most of the world doesn't even know those names. So Savion Glover, people like that. So I was like, I want to do something else. I want to be remembered for this much effort. If I'm putting this much effort in, I would like it to be cataloged somehow. So short answer, I ended up in doing films, and because of my size, I'm 6'2", and my look and my skill set, I could learn choreography quickly. I could create choreography, and I could do martial arts. I could choreograph martial arts. It was the time of Kickboxer and those and the American Samurai and American Ninja and all these movies. So I found work in those kind of movies without even. It wasn't that hard. They were like, "Oh, you're big. You can be the bad guy." And I'm like, "Okay," and I did it, and I did it over and over and over, and pretty quickly I had done 20 kickboxing movies. Uh, Either as the main bad guy or the right hand of the bad guy or whatever it was, and after I'd done it, I was getting a good amount of experience. It was a great film school and a great performance school. After that, I was like, I need to go to acting school. I should probably go to acting school. So I walked into an acting class, uh,
Mhm.
and the kind of acting is called Meisner. It's a very specific kind of acting. And I sat down, and I didn't recognize anybody in the class. So I'm thinking to myself, I was in my 20s. I was really cocky. I'm like, I have been in more movies than everybody in this room. I am going to do just fine in here. Took about 5 minutes for me to realize I know less about acting than everybody in this room, and I'm a I'm gonna get my ass kicked. I was so in over my head. I didn't know anything about acting, and I had so much to learn, and it was humbling. Oh, so humbling. And it's simple stuff. In Meisner, you start out with this thing called the repetition. You're like, somebody stands across from you and they're like, I like your shirt. And you're supposed to go, you like my shirt? And I didn't know what the hell the point was. What is the point of us talking about my shirt for 10 minutes? We would do this. I like your shirt. You like my shirt. I like your shirt. You like my shirt. I didn't know what was going on. It took me about 2 years to figure out what it was supposed to mean. And I'm a slow learner. So I was like, one day I suddenly clicked, and I was like, oh, you like my shirt. And they're like, I like your shirt. And they're like, you like my shirt? And now all of a sudden that dumb shit that we were doing back and forth was a conversation, an entire conversation with all these colors, and it was alive and amazing, and wow, that blew me away. So after 2.5 years, 3 years, I graduated from that school, and I had a better understanding of what acting was supposed to be. But I also had the skill set that I could still do lots of action movies. And people were like, "Hey, we want you to come in and be the bad guy." And I'm like, "I don't want to be the bad guy." And they're like, "Wait, what?" And I'm like, "I want to be the bad guy. Why the bad guy? Why do I have to be the bad guy? Why can't I be the good guy?" They're like, I'm like, "Go on, go on." And slowly they gave me bigger parts that I wasn't always the bad guy. And I love that. I'm not gonna lie, the bad guy has more fun. They have more fun in their scenes, and they have more latitude to play. But I didn't want to represent an entire race of people that look like me as the bad guy all the time. I got sick of that. So
Yeah.
I wanted to be something else. And eventually I got on a television show called Conan the Adventurer, and I got to do some other shows and films, and I was really fortunate to start to get those opportunities. And my acting instructor Annie Drayman, she gave me a lot of that, the ability to communicate, the ability to perform better on screen. And I brought all the physicality from all the masters that have put their time and their effort into me, whether it was my dance teachers or my senseis or my sifus or the gurus. They all gave me all of this, and I try to use it as best I can whenever I can.
Awesome, man. Awesome. Like, do you ever catch yourself like sitting and just looking? Because, like, if you were to go onto your IMDb, even your Wikipedia page, like, literally, your resume is so freaking long. Like, do you ever just sit in awe and be like, "Damn, I did that. That's freaking cool."
It's nice. I just saw this movie called Inside Out. the movie with the emotions. I just saw it too, and there's this cute little character. Did you see it yet?
Yes.
There's this cute little character who makes a little cameo. They're all talking and arguing, and then they think back to an old time, and this little old lady comes out of a special door, and her name is Nostalgia. She comes out, oh, I remember that, and I was like, oh, that's awesome. That is brilliant. That is beautiful, because that's what it's like. You do all of this, and then occasionally you're like, oh yeah, I did that. Oh yeah, I worked with them. Cool. That's it. That's about as long as the nostalgia lasts. I wish I could enjoy looking at the IMDb page. When I look at it, first off, I'm like, man, I was doing movies before IMDb, so this is some bullshit. This isn't the entire list. I want to be credited with my shit, and you guys ain't credited in it, and this is some bullshit. Second, they don't give me all the credits, especially for performance capture and motion capture, because I've done so much stuff, and they haven't ever listed it. My IMDb is 2 or 3 times longer than what you see on there, but the kickboxing stuff happened before there was an internet, largely, and then I have done video games and films where I'll never get the credit unless I go on there and type it in myself. And I don't know if you've ever used IMDb. It is not friendly, so it is not an easy. And you're like, name the credit, name the category of the credit, name the category credits category. I'm like, what does that even mean? I don't even know what these. Just enter the thing, and it won't let me put it in. So I'm like, I don't. If you know, you know. Otherwise, I did that. So it's frustrating to look back to, but at the same time, I'm happy to have been there. And in most cases, it was the experience that paid me more than anything. My experience with that, not only did it make me a better performer and give me the chance to do the stuff that I'm doing today at the level that I'm doing it at, it allows me to have had the experience so that I can tell the new generations of people coming up. I have a school of performance called the Mind's Eye Tribe Action Actors Academy. And all the questions that I had as a young performer in Los Angeles, whether actors or stunts or action actors or creature performers, they have the same questions when they get here. How do I get an agent? How do I get work? How do I get better at being this thing? And how can I get to this level? And I'm like, I'm happy to show you. Come to class. Let's talk about it. And now I have a school that can share some of that, because there was no school for that. There were acting schools, but that was it. There was nowhere to go for stunts. It was very, you have to go to Yerke's place and you have to train on the Russian swing. I'm like, the hell is a Russian swing? I don't want to, that's a circus thing, man. I don't want to be on a Russian swing. So you would get lucky if somebody showed you some skills, which I was. The stunt people that I got to work with, they were like, okay, this stick is a screama stick. We're going to just do the simple motion. Okay, now we're going to add one. We're going to do this and this. All right, this. Now we're going to go 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. And when we weren't shooting, we were playing with wooden sticks and plastic knives so that I could learn. And if I didn't have those experiences, I wouldn't be here now. So much thanks to all the people who shared their knowledge with me.
Definitely. Hey, make sure you definitely plug more of your school. Like, if you want to dive more into that, I mean, please go ahead and do so.
Oh, no, thank you. Again, we have a performance school called the Mind's Eye Tribe Action Actors Academy. We're at mindseyetribe.com. Mind's Eye. It's another word for your imagination. And we teach everything. Originally, we taught classes that would get you into performing for video games, because it is a huge section of the market for actors and for stunt people and for action actors and creature performers who don't know this. And the numbers are close. These aren't exact, but in 2022, music and films made about $49 billion combined. In that same year, video games made $69.78 billion. They made way more than film and music combined. And that was just video games. Nobody saw that coming, but we were working on those video games. So when you're watching the characters in video games shoot and use swords and fight gods and rise out of the blood and roar, these are all a lot of people like us performing these actions. And we're using a technology called motion capture. We put on these tight suits with these markers at all of our joints. We go into a big room, and you're surrounded by these cameras in a very large room. We call it the volume, a motion capture stage. And we perform all of this stuff. And because it's video games, they tend to be centered around a lot of action. So you will need certain sets of skills for video games. That includes basic action, how to punch and kick, and how to take a punch, and how to get shot, how to get sliced by a sword. You need sword skills because swords are the sexy style of action, whether it's lightsaber or pirate's cutlass or knight's straight sword or a samurai's katana. You'll need very specific sword skills, and we teach all of these. And these are all separate classes. You need tactical. So if you're doing Call of Duty, you need very specific tactical skills to look like you know what you're doing when you're holding a weapon. And if you've never been trained with a weapon, we can tell the second you pick it up. And that's going to affect your ability to get on certain sets. They're not going to hire you to be a cop or a soldier if you don't know how to hold a gun and you're required to do that in the scene. And they don't have time to teach you, especially in the beginning. Maybe if you're a big star, but in the beginning, they don't have time to teach you. So we teach you the basic skills you need to operate properly with tactical weapons, whether it's a rifle or a handgun or whatever, the stance, the safety protocols. We teach you all of that stuff. We also teach. We have a class called Beast Mode, which teaches creature performance. So we teach you everything from Groot to Godzilla, whatever it is. You can learn to be a special character. They're called special characters, where it might not be human, and it has this very particular way of being and moving. And we teach you how to build that. We give you a system to go out into the world and build it yourself, depending on what the producer or the director needs. And every show has something different, whether it's an Alien or Undead or something like that. We have the hero's journey. We have a class that's called Villains. We have a class that teaches you how to do magic and look like you understand how to shape and cast magic and how to be affected by it. You don't think about these things until you're on a stage and you realize, oh shit, I don't know how to do this. And that is the worst feeling. To be unprepared at anything is the worst feeling in the world. And if you're on a set, you got like literally 40 eyes looking at you like, and action. And you're like, imagine doing karaoke and you're not drunk. That is what it's like. That. And you don't want that. So we prepare you so that you're fully prepared. You've done it. You've made the mistakes, and you're a professional. When you walk into the audition or to the performance, you just step up and you knock it out of the park. We help with that, and we get performers to the next level so that they can take their career and just go.
That's awesome. And you gotten to work on Call of Duty, The Last of Us, the Resident Evil franchise. Like it is absolutely crazy, man. Like, and it's so interesting because, like, you know, being on the, I guess, the game journalism, but also like understanding how a lot of the everyday gamer thinks. A lot of them think that, oh, this is just easy stuff. Like all this, it doesn't take time. Companies don't invest that much money into it. And I'm like, no, no. I got to work with Just Cause Production when they came out here to Hawaii back in, I want to say, 2019. They were working with Capcom on it. I'm not sure specifically what it was, but like they came out here. I was working with them, Ruben Langdon and whatnot, driving them all over the island. And like I was like, man, there's so much that goes into it. I got to help with the motion capture, got to see what the audio teams are doing. I'm like, there's so much that goes into this. You gamers don't even know.
Ruben and I did a lot. Ruben Langdon is an amazing performer and motion capture actor and motion capture stuntman and real life stuntman. He is one of the guys that I've gotten to work with the most. He's an absolute golden soul. He's an enlightened dude and a really, really cool person. He's one of my favorite people to work with. He's the only other person who's done this as long as I have. He has been around for as long as I have doing performance capture, doing motion capture. He opened Just Cause out here, which was one of the premier motion capture houses. It is now called Rouge Motion Capture. But yeah, he and Just Cause did amazing things. Him and Kin and all of them, they were absolutely amazing, and they're still great friends. They're amazing people.
Yeah.
He got me. He pulled me on the Avatar, I believe. It was Ruben who pulled me onto Avatar.
Wow.
If you ever get a chance, talk to him and ask him about the horse that almost crushed his skull. That is terrifying. It is, but he's hardcore badass. He's amazing.
Yeah, like so whenever he comes out to Hawaii, he usually stays with me and like man, like we were when we weren't working, we were just going around. He's like, "Let's get a workout in." I'm like, "What do you mean?" And he always carries his little band and he puts it on a pole and just starts doing his workouts. And I'm like, "Man, you're always prepared." Yeah, he's super cool, man.
He's a super cool
Uh
cat, man. He's the bomb.
so
Hell yeah.
I know we're wrapping down to the last little bit of this podcast. So I know there's rumors of potentially Capcom is going to remake Resident Evil 5. Do you think, because when Resident Evil 5 originally came out, there's a lot of controversy about that game, like, a white guy in Africa shooting black folks. Do you think that's going to pop up again, given the fact that Resident Evil has been in so many different countries?
I don't I don't know. There's so many things that go into that. First, it's usually a Japanese led project because
Yeah.
that team was in Japan. I think we shot part of that in Japan, or that was Dead Rising. I can't remember, but um, that was Ruben and I, and and it could it's not a good look nowadays because we're all
Yeah.
talking about it. So more than likely they'll veer away from it. But then again, they may just remaster it. I don't know if they're going to reshoot the entire thing. I don't know why they would reshoot the entire thing. It's easier to remaster and reskin it. Um,
Yeah.
so if they can do a total reskin and not shoot the black people, that would be great.
Yeah.
But in the end, Resident Evil tends to be about fighting monsters. So
Yeah.
hopefully that's what they focus on more than anything. It's always been about fighting monsters, mostly in that game. If this one just happened to be fighting monsters in Africa, so if it's a monster, kill that shit. It's a monster. It's kill it. It's gonna eat your face. Just kill that shit. Uh, and that's what video games are. It lets us escape from reality. Um, but at the same time, we have to look at the issues that are really plaguing us
Yeah.
in this day and age, and we have to grow and evolve. If this comes out in a way that would be, if it would irritate a population of people just because it's happening in a particular way, we can fix that. It's digital.
Yeah.
Without a lot of work, you can make certain characters look like a different set of characters, a different kind of character. Um, So if that's a real problem, we can address it, I think. But I'm not part of Capcom, but I will assume that their leadership will be like, yeah, we see the problem here and we can probably address that. And they know that, I mean, they're selling to the public. So unless they want a lot of heat, it can't have a bad look. But then again, in the end, it's monsters. So that's what the game should be about, is fighting the evil monsters. It's not a people thing.
Yeah. One of the last questions I have for you before we wrap up is the rise of AI. I brought this up to recently to Chuck Huber, Kylie Bear, and to Michael Coleman about the rise of AI and how it's affecting voice acting. Do you think this is something that will be nipped in the bud, or do you think the AI is just going to just flood into the industry and start replacing people and jobs?
I can I can imagine horrible things with AI. And it's my imagination is not that far off the mark. And I imagine this as an actor who has to get inside of other people's heads so I can become other people.
Mhm.
If I'm a producer and every day I'm looking at how can I afford this? How can I afford this? How can I get more money back? I One of the main things that people do, that CEOs, that owners do, is have less people. They get rid of people. If I can find a way to get rid of the people, then I can save a lot more money and keep a lot more money. And that is the business. So if I can get rid of the people, that will be one of the first things I will do, unless I have some amazing integrity, which I have not seen in humans, generally speaking, especially when they have a great deal of power. So if we all say, I would like to see real actors, please, thank you. I would like to hear real actors, please, thank you. That might make a difference. But the average person is like, let me play my game and I don't care where it came from, and let me eat my food. I don't care that it has plastic in it. Let me drink this purple drink that I don't care what that ingredient is that I can't pronounce on the back of the can. That is the reality of the situation. So I think, unfortunately, it is something that we're going to lock horns with on either side. There was a quote that back in the days when candles were used for light, I think it was the guy, I think it might have been Edison. He's like, I can imagine a day that we will use candles for luxury rather than our main light source. And he knew what he was working on. He was working on the light bulb. And people were like, light bulbs? You think you're going to have all those wires in my house? You're nuts. You're just absolutely crazy. I have a candle. I haven't lit it in like a year and a half. It's got dust in it because it's a luxury item. We don't use it. Same thing in New York. You go to New York and there's these things called brownstones. You've seen them if you ever watch Sex and the City or if you watch anything in New York. It's those little houses that has those little steps that go up to the door, and then you go inside and then you go into your house. Brownstones, I think, they were built because in the time before cars, there were so many horses in New York that the shit would pile up knee deep. It was knee deep horse shit, horse manure, because horses just poop wherever they want. And then everybody was using horses to drag their carts and to drag the produce into town and to get from point A to point B. That's how bad the horse problem was. And then if a horse died, which happened all the time, you don't, what do you move a horse with? Another horse? You can't. They're just unwieldy. So you had to wait for it to atrophy. Then you cut it into pieces after it was atrophied, and then you carted it away in pieces. Maybe you used the meat, maybe it was too bad, but in any case, you had to wait. It was a gross whole thing. And then one day, the car came along. And then probably in less than a decade, horses became obsolete. The whole reason that we built a certain kind of house to get out of the horse poop wasn't there anymore. The houses were already built, so they will always stay there, but there were no more horses. You couldn't give away a horse because all of a sudden automobiles came in and changed everything. So that is a part of the problem with AI, and the competition is humans. We're already losing jobs. You can already see people laying off huge parts of our workforce in video games. It's a lot of artists. They're laying off a lot of artists, a lot of managers who would deal with the artists. That's happening already. There's already programs that can. I'm going to oversimplify this, but there's programs that can sample your voice and then take your voice and poof, all of a sudden you're speaking Hebrew in your voice. Exactly your voice, but it's in Hebrew. I click a few buttons. Now it's in Laotian. A couple more buttons. Now I'm speaking Thai, but it's Morgan Freeman's voice. It's Scarlett Johansson's voice. Exactly, but in those other languages. That's what that group of investors and scientists are working on. It's already here. So now, are we going to allow it? Are we going to accept it? Are we going to demand it? Or are we going to demand more performers? I can imagine a horrible speculation where the next superstar, let's call him Tom Cruise type, he appears on screen. He's got this huge movie. Everybody loves him. They're waiting for his next movie, and the next 3 movies are already on the slate. And what you don't know is that Tom Cruise character doesn't exist. He's a digital character that studio owns, and that he will never be in a scandal because he's a digital character. You may not even know he's digital. I can imagine that they will walk him around, and if he needs my skills, they'll hire me. I'll do a cool sword thing, and then I'll do a cool acting thing, and then they'll slap his face on me. They'll put his voice package on my voice, so I sound exactly like what they needed to, and it looks like Tom Cruise is doing it, the Tom Cruise animation character, but they own this character who never lived. And now this character can be more or less the same age for the next 50 years. He can roll out movies 2 a year because he never gets tired. He never has to go on vacation. They can do several
Mm-hmm.
movies at the same time, slap his face onto all of them. Totally fine. It's not that far off. So that is a possibility. If I was an evil CEO, I would be thinking about that possibility and checking into how I could get that as fast as possible. Because if I control all the cards, then yay. So that is a horrible scenario, and our world is full of messed up supervillains right now. And that one, we don't even know the name of that supervillain. There's a couple of villains we do know the name of, and this one we don't. We don't even know who's working on this technology, but it is already out there. I'm sure of it.
Yeah, like I've noticed with and I've said this to other content creators, podcasters, YouTubers, and such. You know, especially with all the constant drama with content creators or podcasters getting caught up in whatever situation that they're in. There's going to be this technology coming out exactly like you said, where they can create. I mean, I think there's already some software out there, and some companies are already having their own influencers that they have created, and they never have to worry about anything because I'm partnering with PlayStation. I've worked with all these other companies, and it's like if I mess up once, I immediately get a warning, and it's like you do it again, you fuck up again, you're done. Whereas with these people, like, nope, we need you to do this, need you to do that, we need you to say this. We don't want you to be working with a competitor. And I think Gary Vaynerchuk was actually talking about this recently. He's like, we can't really compete with the AI. It can't be. It's not capable of the creativity that we as humans can do, but it's way more efficient and works a lot faster, and it can be easily, to an extent, controlled. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I watched YouTube videos, and I watched one on a political subject, and it pronounced something in a funny way, and I'm like, this is AI. This man, and only because it pronounced something in a funny way, I knew that because the character was so well spoken, and then it said something weird, and I was like, this is AI. Damn it! I'm listening to this AI, and I immediately stopped listening because I'm like, I'm not supporting this. But pretty soon, you won't know the difference. They will
Yeah.
fix all the little hiccups, and we're gonna. It's already bad enough. He said, she said, lies here and lies there. But pretty soon, you're gonna have a really hard time discerning what is the lie and what is the truth and what is AI and what is real. So
Yeah.
we'll have to deal with it as it comes. But we need oversight on it. We need controls on it. Absolutely. It is absolutely imperative that we get that.
Yeah, we are literally in a simulation in a way, because like the augmented reality, which I mean, if people weren't paying attention to, I mean, they were kind of trending us towards that with our phones, like, hey, you can do this with AR. And now it's like, what's real? And that's scary. That is
It is
scary.
really, really scary. But I do get to hear scientists. I love TikTok. I hope TikTok does not disappear because that is it is some brilliant stuff on there. Some stupid shit too, but there's some brilliant stuff on there. And some of I follow a lot of scientists and astrophysicists and stuff like that. Neil deGrasse Tyson and other people, and a lot of them are talking about life is a simulation. We found the code. And I'm like, you found the code? That's not terrifying. I'm just waiting for the AI to catch up and be like, you realize that this is all a simulation. I'm like, wait, what? You know it too? What is happening? That it just sounds it sounds like a cool three body problem type of series just waiting to happen. I would love to make that happen, but yeah, that stuff sounds amazing.
Yeah.
Wait, what kind of video games do you play, man? What do you do?
Oh, I play fighting games, RPGs. Current obsession right now is the Elden Ring DLC.
Oh, you
Erdtree.
like it? I heard it's really hard though.
Man, I'm getting my ass kicked left and right, but it's
Okay,
like
okay, so
this Like it's one of the few times where I'm like, get my ass kicked and I like it. Like it's just you know, like, I'm paying you to whoop my ass. All right, let's do that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's great.
I just like for me, like I grew up playing, you okay, so again, dating myself, but growing up 80s and 90s is like you only got a video game your birthday or Christmas, or if you get save up money during a summer job. So I'm used to having one or two. Now it's like when I got the chance to play as much as I can, I play everything. So when people are like, oh, console wars or I only play this, I'm like, stop. Like you guys are acting like the folks who like only listen to a certain genre of music. I'm like, you now realize you have access to so much music, movies, games, art, literature, everything. So don't just pick one thing, play it all, listen to it all, enjoy it all. Like it's just there's no
Absolutely.
point in human history we've ever had it like this that we know of. It's like and just indulge in it.
It's a good time. We're in the golden era of entertainment with
Yeah.
so many options. There's so much amazing stuff, and even television is blowing us out of the water with some great stuff. So, do you play board games and stuff as well?
I have been trying to get into D&D. I didn't get to play that growing up. Every time I talk to Coleman, he's like, "You gotta get into it. You gotta get into it." And it's so crazy because every voice actor and actor that I know, everybody's into D&D, and I'm like, "Why? What is it?" And I think was it Kyle? I think it was either Kyle or Chuck Huber. They were both like, "Well, we're actors, and it lets us act more." So it's like.
Absolutely, absolutely. Coleman, I get to play with Coleman every Sunday. He's in my Sunday game. I run 3 games a week. I should not be saying this on camera, but I dungeon master 3 games a week, and it's a lot. But he's in the Sunday group, and he's amazing. He's hilarious. He plays a great character as a priest of a death god. He's just horrible. It is awesome. It is amazing. But he's got so much creativity and so much energy and so much character. He's spectacular. But yeah, man, I hope you enjoy getting to play if you finally get to. Do you play any Magic the Gathering?
I have not. My wife and I definitely want to get into it, but it's just been hard because we got a toddler and she's just
Yeah, if you want to get into it, you can always take a mortgage out on your place. So, but yeah, it's the new craze around here. Everybody's like, "You got a deck?" And I'm like, "I got 3 decks. What's up?" And we would get into it during lunch. If we're on a set somewhere, we're all, and then the director will walk by like, and he'll just walk. It's great. It's great. It's really really fun.
man. I got to get you out here for Kawaii Con because man, we be having some huge D&D turn like events and just like tabletop games in general. It's just crazy that it
Oh
happens.
man, I would love to. I haven't. You know what? I've never gotten to go to a con in Hawaii. It wasn't a thing when I was a kid. Not that I knew about. I played. I grew up in Hawaii. That's why I started playing D&D, and I never got to play there, not even once. So yeah, I would love that. That would be a blast. That would be spectacular. Hell
All
yeah!
right, all
And
right.
we'll get you to play too, man. Maybe we'll pull you onto a game just so you can have some fun.
Yeah, definitely, man. And yeah, I'll talk to because I'm trying to get Kawaii-Con to bring a lot of people out because they pick folks here and there. I mean, I know this year they had Kyle, they had Chris Sabat, and a couple other people, but it's like I'm like, there's so many people that you could bring out here, and people would show up. Like we had the line around the convention center was literally like wrapped around 3 times. That's how many people were crazy to get in there, and it's like you guys, they're like, oh, but we're not sure who to talk to, and I'm like, let me be your guy. I know all these people. Let me like just let me help you anyway.
And you know the world, so that helps a lot. A lot of the time, they don't know what they're getting into. It's a whole another world to navigate. It's a lot.
Yeah. So with that being said, man, is there anything you want to leave the audience with before we go? Anything you want to plug? Feel free. The floor is yours.
Most of the stuff that we're working on is NDA, so we can't talk about the secret stuff. There's a lot of cool stuff coming up. I'm working on a whole bunch of projects at the same time right now. Amazing stuff that I'm excited about. Um, uh, but in the end, if you got people watching, they're probably, or playing board games, playing Magic, doing D&D, playing the video games. Keep on doing that. Keep on supporting it. Just have fun. Enjoy this. And if you're interested in it, start to reach out into that world. If you're like me, if you were like I was when I was a kid, this stuff just fed your imagination machine. And you walk around and you would say, what if? And that is the only two words you need to start an entire script. That's how scripts are filled. That's how games are made. Or what if? And if that hits you, tell somebody, work on it. And not everybody is worth telling, because there's certain people that I work on stories with and I'm like, what if? And they're like, I don't get it. I don't work with that person. Then I tell my other friend, I have a friend named Van, and I'm like, what if? And he's like, but what if? And I'm like, oh, find those people. Find the other yes and or the other what if people. Write that stuff. Make it come to life, because there's stories that you have that we haven't even thought of yet. We need those stories. We need your stories. There are generations and cultures that we need to hear from. Just because you're in somewhere that is not Hollywood, don't hold that to yourself. Write it down. Get it ready. Tell your story. Share your story, because we need to hear it. Somewhere out here, we need that story. Our stories have kept us moving forward and told us what to be afraid of, and told us what we should hope for, and kept us moving. We have cave writings, which were stories from 60,000 years ago in Montervieso, Spain. You look at the caves and they were like, there's this big animal and we hunt this animal, but we avoid this animal. And then there's handprints of all of these things. And these are the stories from 60,000 years ago. They weren't afraid to write those stories down. So don't you be. Go get inspired, tell those stories, share those stories, play those games. And thanks for supporting the work that we do. And I can't wait to support the work that you guys do when you finally are ready to share your stories.
And with that being said, where can people find you on the internet and social media?
Google my name, TJ Storm. I'm an actor. I don't know if I even said all of this stuff. I'm primarily an actor, but I'm also a motion capture performer. I performed the motion capture for Godzilla, King of the Monsters, as well as Godzilla 2014. I've been in Avatar. I was Colossus in Deadpool. I played Baby Groot, Teenage Groot. I played Iron Man. All wild. I've been Darth Vader. I've been the Predator. I've gotten to do a lot of really, really incredible projects that I grew up watching. So to be a part of that universe is just so exciting and gratifying for me to get to be a small part of that and to carry those stories and that legacy. Those were exciting to me, and I'm hopefully able to share it with other generations that is exciting for them. So it's easy to find me, TJ Storm, or join us at mindseyetribe.com. Maybe I'll come to Hawaii and do a session out there if there's interest out there. But if you're in Los Angeles or if you're in another state, just email us or call us and we'll get a class together so you can join it and learn these kind of performance techniques that we do. But TJ Storm01 on Twitter or X, Stormzeye with a Z, one word, Stormzeye on Instagram, and it's easy to find me, mindseyetribe.com.
Okay.
Mekel, thank you for having me, and thank you, Michael Coleman, for knowing this cool dude and connecting us. I'm going to come out and we'll play some games. I'll bring some cards. I'm going to bring some Magic cards so you can learn the joy that is Magic. It's stupid. But you don't play League of Legends, do you?
No, I need to get into it though.
You're a good soul. Then that's what that means. So, because there's some angry people on League of Legends, so that's a whole nother universe. But maybe we'll get on someday. It's really, really fun. But dude, thank you, man.
Yeah, thank you so much for coming on the show. I'll have links for everything down in the description below. Thank you guys for tuning in for this episode, and we hope to see you in the next one. Stay safe, be blessed, have aloha in everything you do, and we'll see you on the next one. Peace out, and we hope. If you enjoyed this episode of the podcast or any of the other episodes that we've done so far, if you've enjoyed any of the conversations I've had with the guests that I've had on the show, or just general topics that you guys have thrown at me or that I've researched and we've just talked about on the show, then do me a solid. If you're listening on any of the major podcasting outlets, make sure you leave a comment, leave a rating or review, because it greatly helps out the show. If you're watching the show on YouTube, which airs every single week, then make sure you sub to the channel, youtube.com/@Mekel Kasanova, or just youtube.com/Mekel Kasanova, or even do us an even bigger solid by liking the video and sharing it with someone you think would find some enjoyment out of it. And all that being said, I hope you guys continue to enjoy this podcast and the content we put out here, because hey, we do it with a passion and we do it for you. So with that being said, I catch you guys on the next one. Stay safe, be blessed, and I'll see you around. Peace.